Hi guys, Mr. Jaeger here, and welcome back to Star Citizen, and welcome to the last day in the 2953 IAE. It is sadly that time. We are saying goodbye to this event. I am sad. I never liked this day. I mean, I love the fact that this day's come because it means that we can kind of take all the wonders of the experience and then go looking forward into 2024 with a hopeful glee and all that other bollocks. But also, I am sad to see this event go because I love this event. It's my highlight of the year. And, well, to be fair, on this event, it's not so much a highlight because the ships look terrible. So basically, there's the new ships. These are all the ships for best in event or best in show. Now, I have no idea what the criteria is that helps people get to that level. It's either you have to rent these ships out the most or buy these ships the most. I don't know. One thing I also love is the fact that that ship hasn't got a functioning, the model is glitched out, so you don't see the landing gear. So my interpretation is this ship is currently requiring, staying afloat only through narcissism and arrogance. So the Corsair is the winner of the show, which is brilliant, but I think the only ship that can really pull off this really heinous theme is the 600i. The Corsair is kind of okay, but there are better skins for it. This just no, and this just no. The Vulture has far better stock skin and far better skins that you can, well, purchase that I have got that are so much better, but no. But today, we're going to be having a look at a different sort of thing. We're going to be looking at first-person weapons. Yes, because Star Citizen isn't all about ships. It's about first-person weapons and experience, and my personal experience with them. We also have a few limited edition suits that you can purchase on the website. Not shilling, just telling them how it is. I will say this. From a personal perspective, there are two that I want to get. The first is this. Not because of the armor, but because of the coda. Now, the coda looks amazing. In my experience, I found the coda to be quite a reliable and effective pistol that gives me the ability to defend myself and reliably take out most opponents with one shot in the upper torso region. And this particular version of the coda, I love the look of. It looks amazing. The subtle color changes. It's not bland, but it's not super bright, but it's not bland. I love it, and that's the reason why I'm getting that. The suit, the Venture suit, I also like as well. It's subtle. It's tonally subtle, which, in my opinion, is a big plus. You know, the brighter you are, the less I'm appealing. This is just a Xeno. Yeah, this is just a Xeno style Destiny. This is a Destiny Xeno really ugly thing. I'm not a fan. The helmet makes you look stupid. The shoulder pad not matching the other side is dumb. It just means you're a Xeno because you don't know what uniformity means. And it also is really just, ugh. You know, I'm not a huge fan of it. The Kana looks amazing, though. I won't lie about that. That is a very nice looking Kana. I wouldn't get it. I said, I'm not a die-hard Kana fan, but I know there's a crowd out there who fucking lives and dies by this weapon, and often they do. But this weapon is extremely good, and the coloring on this makes it look very, very nice. But I'm not a fan of the helmet primarily, but I'm not a huge fan of the other stuff as well. But what I am a fan of is the Noviakov Ascension suit. This is how you do a space suit. It's subtle, it works, it does the job, and it looks good doing it. That's the important thing. Not a huge fan of the S-71 on this one. I'm not a die-hard. I like the concept of the S-71, but I just don't. It just this particular cosmetic does not make it look super appealing, which is a bit of a shame. Going on into the middle of the room, which is the only other thing that we have a whole panel full of things that you can rent ships from. So if you've missed the event or missed all the days, but you want to try any of the ships, you have the ability to rent out all the ships from here, which is pretty cool. So that's a big plus there. The last thing we have available is the weapon rack, which I will immediately put a caveat and say, this is missing the FS9, and this is missing the Coda pistol on the side. So we're going to be talking briefly about all of my experiences with these weapons, as I have had the opportunity in my years of playing Star Citizen to use pretty much all of them. But I will add a very big caveat to this. This is my experiences and personal opinions. This does not reflect the whole consensus of the community. This also, as I am primarily a PvE player, and I don't constantly do PvP, I don't have a up-to-date experience on the PvP side of things, but I have used a number of these weapons in PvP and found great success with a variety of them. So all I will say is that in the persistent universe, PvE and PvE are more or less the same thing, in my opinion. I have not noticed any major differences when I was fighting players in terms of damage, accuracy, and whatnot for when I was facing off against AI. Without further ado, let us get started by the pistol side of the equation. So, pistols, always at your side. A very true equation, and in my experience, my best recommendation for anyone new to Star Citizen is always, always, always have a pistol on your side. Even if you don't use it for like 95% of the time, the times that you do need a pistol is when it really counts, and it doesn't weigh anything much, and having a couple of spare mags, having a spare slot for the mag means that you have 2 mags worth of pistol, because as we see here, wearing heavy armor, which bearing in mind if you have lighter armor you have less slots for your magazines, having a dedicated slot for a pistol magazine means that if the shit hits the fan and you're not able to quickly put magazines from your from your backpack or your armor components into your slots, then you're in the shit, resulting in you dying and unfortunately losing all your progress in NDPU. That's a really bad thing. So for most players out there, you will be using the Arclight pistol. This is the first pistol that you are greeted with when starting Star Citizen, and I can say from experience, it's a pretty decent all-rounder pistol. Like, it's not the best out of it, it's not great with damage, but it does have the largest magazine capacity, about 30 rounds. And of course, if you're the kind of person who doesn't have isn't quite confident in the long range, feels that they're going to be in combat for a long time, or you're going with a build that just you want to be stealing weapons and putting them into your pouch or whatever, you could use this as a kind of hatchet run style where you can basically try and use this pistol to survive, but you will be up against a fair amount of pissed off enemies, and you may not be able to kill them fast enough before they kill you. So treat that as a caveat. To be fair, in my experience, I've had the same issue with a majority of laser weapons. Sometimes they don't do quite enough damage to finish the target off, but things can change and evolve. So the next pistol that you get to, the next pistol that would sort of, in a sense, tear up from, is the S-38. Now, the S-38 is basically the ballistic equivalent of the Arclight, in the sense that you have a lot of rounds, around, I want to say 12, 15, around that region. So it's basically like an M9 Beretta of Star Citizen, and this thing can fire really quickly. Like, holy shit, you can, as fast as you can click, it shoots. And it definitely is a pretty useful pistol if you're wanting to spam rounds downrange. It saved me on a couple of occasions, but I've only felt that it's because I've been able to get enough rounds on target than in through sheer damage itself. Because, as with all things spam, it needs to hit something before it becomes effective. And as a result, I can't say that it's the best pistol out there for ballistics, but it definitely does a good job. And in terms of aesthetics, it looks pretty good. Recoil is all right, and recoil isn't so bad that you can't keep your eyes off the target, but it is somewhat lacking in terms of ballistic damage. So take that with the caveat. The next is the LH-86, one of the cooler looking pistols in Star Citizen, and what I would deem as the USP or Colt 45 of Star Citizen. It's got a medium sense of damage, reasonable rate of fire, and I do love its aesthetics in terms of its look, and its firepower capacity is pretty good, all right. I think it has around 10, 12 rounds, so it generally does the job pretty well. And again, it's more damaging than the S-38, but the LH-86 is, I would say, if you're sticking with the fast-firing pistol, where you want to have more rounds to sort of guarantee, if you're limited in terms of armor, like ammunition slots, and you want to maximize the clip management system, magazine management system, then I feel dirty having used that term. Then you can obviously revert to these two weapons in order to maximize your firepower efficiency, but maximize your ammunition consumption efficiency, shall we say. So I would say if it was between these two pistols, I would choose the LH-86 simply because I get a little bit more bang for my buck rather than the S-38. Then I'm going to go with this weapon because for some reason lots of players I've met seem to swear by this pistol And they tend to tell newer players that they should get this pistol. And I'm going to tell you now, that is objectively a wrong thing to do. Like, I'm going to stand and die on this hill. The Salvo Frank pistol does not work as well as you think it will. It is a high damage deagle, but I'm going to call this the deagle for dummies. People who see this gun will ignore the downsides of this firearm, in which you A, have to have a long wind-up for the charge shot, or B, it has the ability to fucking kill you if you're too close to your target. Like, because it's a grenade pistol. It is going to explode, there will be a spread, you will get slapped by it. It is also the ugliest pistol in Star Citizen. It looks like something you pull out of an animal when doing an anal probing. Like, this is the kind of temperature gun that you rectally insert into a cow. I don't like this weapon, as you could probably tell, but I found that whenever I've used this damn thing, it's done more damage to me as well as the enemy. But it's fucked me over because my arm is now buggered and I can't hit shit for dick, and I don't have any medipens because I've been using this weapon for too long. It is not a good pistol. It is a display pistol. It's a pistol that you get when you don't know what a gun is and you think, oh, this looks funky, or your version of your understanding of firearms is only limited to Call of Duty. So no, this pistol is objectively bad in my opinion. I say objectively bad in my opinion. That's a really dumb statement. But my hatred for this weapon is just paramount. I do not like this weapon. It is slow firing, has only 8 rounds. It just does not work. And while the ability for you to swap out the different firing modes is okay, it's still a pretty bad weapon because it limits your abilities tenfold. So no, it is a very bad pistol. I very much recommend you don't go for this particular pistol because there are far better options in terms of firearms for your pistol length. Oh, I hate that thing. Anyway, going to a specialty case weapon, we are presented with the Uberov pistol. This is an electric pistol in which you fire an electric pulse that can bugger over someone rather royally. Now, theoretically speaking, this weapon is potentially going to be utilized not as just a lethal option, but as a non-lethal option as well, as this weapon potentially could be used as a taser to subdue bounty hunting targets when doing bounty hunting missions. Now, I don't know how long that'll be before that process comes into it, but I can tell you that the Uberov pistol is actually pretty decent. It's more of a specialty use case than a dedicated pistol role, primarily because what the specialty use entails is when you shoot a target and the target happens to be within, I want to say 4 to 5 foot from the nearest opposing person. So maybe, I don't know, like 2, 4, 3 meters, that kind of element. The electric charge spreads between the 2 targets. You kind of daisy chain 2 of the targets together. Now, I don't know, I haven't personally experienced any more than 2 when it comes to a daisy chain, but it could potentially be more if you get shots in with the ADSCAV, which we'll get into later down the line. But this pistol is, I would say, pretty reasonable. Its damage is kind of bleh in comparison to other weapons, but it's still, I would say, a pretty good choice. And if you like your sort of sci-fi pistols, this definitely is one of them because it has a very unique way of firing, and its ammunition consumption is okay. I think it's got around 12 to 13 rounds, so it's not as high as, say, the S38, or obviously not as high as the Arclight, and its damage, I think, is more akin to what you get with the LH86, but you do get the extra benefit of, actually, to be fair, I think it's more akin to the Arclight than the S38 now thinking on it, but still, the damage is reasonably good, and you have the ability to daisy chain, but still, pretty damn good pistol, and in my experience, I've had pretty decent success with it. Both players and NPCs alike. So a thumbs up from me, but only in specialty cases. I wouldn't say it's the go-to pistol. That's definitely not the case. But for everything else, I'd say it does a pretty good job. Finally, we have, in my opinion, again, opinion, not backed by the community, but I would say it definitely has a fair few fans, we have the Coda. The Coda is, I mean, to be fair, we can actually have a look at the blurb on the event stand over here. The Coda is a 6-shooter, technically revolver. This thing is, in my opinion, the best pistol in Star Citizen. It has 6 rounds. Its reload is fast. It's got a pretty modular frame. It looks amazing. And when it comes to combat, it reliably one-taps any medium-wearing armored opponents from the upper chest onwards. If you hit the sides or the legs or whatever, you'll severely cripple them, but it will allow you to, be able to one-tap a majority of opponents who wear medium armor and below, and be able to cripple them quite severely if you hit them in any other location. The downsides are, as I said, only has 6 rounds in its magazine. It does have a bit of a nasty recoil, and of course, its reload is somewhat lengthy in comparison to other pistols. It's a lot better than other sort of weapons. But at the same time, the Coda revolver is definitely my go-to. It's the one that I personally utilize a lot and has saved my bacon on more than one occasions, both PvP and on PvE as well. And I love it. Personally, I'm a huge fan of it, and maybe call me biased, but I find my experience with the Coda has been nothing but beneficial, and is why I love that weapon. It does the job it needs to, it's reliable, it also looks amazing, and it's quite customizable. There's lots of things you can do with it, unlike another certain fucking piece of shit weapon. So, we go towards SMGs. Now, I'm going to say one particular thing. I have not used the Lumen 5 SMG much. I think out of all the weapons in Star Citizen, in terms of use cases, I would say my least used weapons are probably the Lumen 5 and the F-55. But in terms of my experiences with it, it is... I remember it once. I used it a few times. Like, I remember the one occasion I had where I encountered an opponent, I shot at him, it didn't quite do enough damage for me to kill him, and he killed me. Now, that's not to say that the gun is bad because I wasn't able to kill him, but it could be something more along the lines of, I was not in a good position. He was able to get some shots off before I could start shooting at him, so I would say the situation is more akin to a bad placement on my part rather than the fault of the gun or anything along those lines anyway. So that is something that I do have to take into account. But basically, the Lumen SMG is a smaller version of the Gallant, which we'll get into in a second, and it does look pretty cool. It has its own little flair to it. It is very small in comparison to other SMGs, so it does have the ergonomics advantage. And I will say, aesthetically, it does look pretty cool as well. You do have some level of modability towards it, but still, that's pretty cool. Let me have a little bit of inspection for that. So 45 rounds inspection. Yeah, it's very small. So 45 rounds. Looks pretty good. Again, it's just a Gallant, but smaller. And maybe could be the replacement for the Gallant. Who knows? I need to start looking into SMGs a bit more. Though then again, I'm more of an assault rifle person at the moment. Though again, maybe at some point I want to kind of go for another particular edge. But we'll get into that in a minute. So yes, this is a pretty decent weapon. And very useful for bunker clearing missions, as well as clearing out the 890 jump mission, as well as the mission where you got to clear out the... Reclaimer. There's so many more now. I love it. I can talk more about the Custodian. Now, the Custodian is the best way to describe it is the P90 but laser edition. As you can probably tell by the aesthetics, any firearms fan out there will immediately think of this as a P90. And I would say it operates fairly similar to one. Shitloads of rounds, medium to relatively decent damage. I can't say it's like humongous levels of damage, but it is a pretty decent firearm. As said, in terms of aiming, it's a pretty solid... in terms of firearms, it's a pretty decent... I don't know, can you call an energy weapon a firearm? Because technically, it's not exploding when you fire it. So we ask the big questions here. But no, in terms of usability, it's a pretty decent weapon overall. I personally find in my experience, and I don't know if anyone else has had the same thing, energy weapons have a tendency not to... with a few exceptions, not be able to output the same level of damage as ballistics. Now, I'm wondering if that's because it's a balancing factor or if it's something else, but I kind of feel like the energy weapon side of things is more rounds but less damage versus the ballistics, which is less rounds but more damage. I'm kind of believing it's like that, but in my experience when I've been using this thing in combat, I've run out of ammunition more than I've been able to kill targets reliably when I finish the mag off. So make of that what you will. I personally don't have anything wrong with this weapon, and I think it's a very effective weapon for someone who wants to have longevity when it comes to magazine consumption. But it does have that limitation that unless you hit the right zones, you will be pissing through your ammunition, which we'll be going into. The ballistics have the same problem, don't get me wrong. But still, pretty bad on that one. Speaking of which, let's talk about an SMG that I think definitely could do with a bit of a change around to make it more viable. Otherwise, it's going to be relegated to if your combat's going to last only about 5 minutes. So this is the C-54. This thing is beautiful. It is a compact vector-like SMG, which has the ability to spam rounds downrange, and its 1,200 rounds per minute fire rate is ridiculous. You will piss through ammunition very quickly. And as a result, the effective combat range of this machine gun is more or less within 10 feet, 10 feet or less. So the main advantages of this weapon is, of course, if you're in missions such as the 890 jump mission, the Reclaimer, the occasionally small bunker, as well as a few other tight-knit environments, this weapon is really good because it allows you to quickly spam rounds down range, and if enough of them hit the target, then they will, kill the target. But at the same time, it does have that limiting factor that you will piss through ammunition very quickly. And as a result, you will end up spending more time having to repack the mags, and God help us if we have to do what to be fair, part of me kind of wants that to go into Star Citizen, but the other half of me knows it will be a very bad idea. It will be in the current state Star Citizen is, this is the community reacting to that idea. It's like, no, don't do it. But yeah, no, I can feel Chris Roberts hearing that idea right now and be like, right, we're repacking mags. Anyway, so when it comes to longer form firefights, the C-54 has that limitation that you can't really use it very long. If you're in a firefight that lasts less than 10 minutes, then great. You'll be able to go through the 890 jump mission, the Reclaimer stuff, without too much fuss. But if you're going into a bunker mission on a higher reputation when more bad guys are coming in, you're going to find yourself either selecting your magazines very quickly, and having a larger stockpile in your backpack, which then, of course, limits what kind of loot you can take, or you will find yourself running out of ammunition and ditching the firearm as soon as possible, or switching to an alternative. I don't personally recommend this weapon for anyone who's new to Star Citizen, because as much as the weapon looks cool, it could fuck you over, which obviously in your early days of Star Citizening is probably not the best option. And it's also quite expensive. Now, in my opinion, the best SMG is the P8SC, and it looks amazing. And there's a rifle edition of this thing, and I want it in my life, but the fuckers won't release it. But no, so the P8 SMG is, in my opinion, the best SMG in Star Citizen. It has super awesome... Oh, there we go, lag spike there. It has an incredibly controllable recoil system, a very reasonable 45-round magazine. It also has a very modular frame, which I actually really like. As you can see here, you can put the red dot sight to it, you can put the torch to it, and the frame looks and feels very, very pleasant. You can work with this firearm extremely well, and its fire selection options also benefits if you're trying to go for a bit more of a tactical opinion as well. So it definitely is a very, very good frame. And if you're new to Star Citizen, this is probably the best weapon you can start with in Star Citizen, because it's got a large magazine capacity, it's very forgiving to new players, and it gives you the most bang for your buck, as a lot of bandits tend to use this firearm, meaning that there's a lot of people out there who can give you spare ammunition for it. So overall, I would say really good firearm, really good weapon, and definitely worth your time, especially since, in terms of economics, it will see you through far more situations than the C-54 can, as well as a few other firearms. The assault rifles. The core crux of most people's experience with Star Citizen, and in my opinion, probably the baseline for which most firearms could operate and should operate from. Like, it's basically, this is your core crux. As much as a new player would benefit from SMGs, if they want to kind of go in fully, then I would say these particular weapons are just as fine as an approach, if not slightly problematic when it comes to consumption of ammunition or specific types of fire arcs. So, let us begin with the most common weapon you'll find in anyone's arsenal, both player and NPC alike, the P4. Now, the P4 is what I would call, it's basically the M4/AK of Star Citizen. It's very simple, very rugged, very reliable. It has a 30-round magazine, and while it has undergone some sort of changes on occasion, it's still a rugged, reliable weapon. It is very modular. You can put the scopes onto it. You can put the flashlights onto it. It has a screen for some reason, but it also has. I would say I've had a bit of a mixed experience. At one point, the weapon was really rough, and it definitely was not good, and I was not a fan of it. Now it's in a much better position, and it can definitely be. I would definitely call it a reliable source. I personally am not a huge fan of this weapon, or at least. If I don't often choose this weapon because it feels a bit dull. It's like the weapon is like, it's good, it works, and everything about it, but it doesn't have anything that adds pizzazz to it. And I like my weapons to have a bit of a flair to them, a bit of an awesome sound, a bit of a cool thing to it. It just, in my opinion, feels a bit like bleh. No different to the Mustangs. Really, it's like the it's the Mustang of Star Citizen, in my opinion. It's a good weapon. If you were to use it, I would have respect for you. I'm not going to lose respect for you. You are making a sound, reasonable, objectively good choice when it comes to your firearms. But I feel like the weapon just hasn't got enough of a pizzazz, or doesn't have that much of an aesthetic to make me fall in love with it. So, yeah, definitely a good weapon, reliable, but a bit bland in the grand scheme of things. And this is the Gallant, which I feel sad about, because the Gallant used to be my absolute favorite dream weapon of all time. It is an energy weapon, which is surprising, and at first I didn't think I'd ever get into energy weapons. I thought I was going to be a loyal ballistics man till the day I died. But then I got to use the Gallant, and oh boy, it was a wonderful experience. Until they nerfed it. As all developers do. They find the things you love the most and they take them away from you because they're evil. No, the Gallant used to have a much different firing rate systems. You could choose between a burst fire mode, which now is the only mode you can fire with this weapon, a full auto, which was a lot slower, or a burst fire option, which was where you could fire 5 rounds and it was quite fast. Now, I loved the full auto mode. The magazine size was also up to 60, which is ridiculous. It was a very long form, and as energy weapons go, or as weapons go, this weapon was the best bang for your buck because you had 60 rounds. The slow rate of fire, it was like a Maxim level, maybe Vickers level of fire rate. It was like so it was a really good rate of fire. And even if you didn't use and if you decided, you know what, I don't want the slow rate of fire, I don't like the slow rate of fire, I want a burst fire. The fire was like, brum, brum, it was good. It worked well. I love this weapon. And I loved this weapon so much. And then the developers decided, the CIG changed it with a patch, reducing the ammunition down by 15 and making it a burst weapon only, which, I can only do a Godfather. What did they do to my boy? It was a sad day. So in terms of weapon usage, I still use this thing on more occasions, but I feel like I need to switch things out because the burst fire is catching me out now, and I don't think it fires. I don't believe it fires as much now as it used to, but it still fucks me over a bit as I end up running out on the mag, and I want myself to have more full auto weapons rather than have the choice of full auto versus others. So, yeah, bit of a sad shame for that one. Going down the list, as I may have mentioned in the earlier segments, we have the S51. Now, the S51 is an alright firearm. It's a DMR, not really an assault rifle, as you can only fire single shots from it. And the main appeal of this firearm is that it has a very funky looking scope, which is this little thing here. And its main advantage is that, unlike, for example, other things such as other scopes which require you to, well, I think a fair amount of scopes still have that auto tracking system, auto zeroing thing, which I'm not a huge fan of. I prefer to have my ranges set to 100, 200, 300. This particular weapon is, you know, for the medium marksman out there, this weapon is quite a solid, reliable piece of kit. And even if you take the scope off and you replace it with like a red dot sight or even just work with the irons, it does the job. It's a semi-automatic firearm that does quite a reasonably decent amount of damage. But again, you're limited by that semi-auto or option, which is a bit puzzling, seeing as I can see there's a fucking full auto function down there as well. But whenever I've tried, it's not letting me do it. So, who knows, maybe if I try again, they might actually finally add a full auto option. But with this weapon so far, in my experience, it's always been a semi-automatic option. But still, a really solid firearm, and if you're a fan of like medium to longish combat distances, then this gun is for you. It's very, very good. It's got a large magazine capacity of around 30 rounds, and it definitely is a suit. And in terms of efficiency with magazine capacity, efficiency with combat ammunition capacity, it's very, very reliable. Very, very good. Finally, let's talk about the Kana. This is the love child of many players out there. The amount of players I have met who have sworn their children's lives to this thing is ridiculous. And I can't exactly blame them. This thing is probably the best firearm in Star Citizen in terms of combat effectiveness, customization, adaptability, and it has a unique property to it to top it up. So the Kana rifle is a plasma rifle. Unlike a ballistics weapon, it kind of has a laser weapon. It has a bit more of a packing of a punch towards it. And the other difference is that you can choose to either fire full automatic, burst fire, or if you have the opportunity, or if you press, I think if you go into the next fire mode, you can charge up a large amount of ammunition to be expended in a sort of pulse shot round. This is ridiculously good in that respect. I do find the Kana rifle, when I have had my times using it, I've had a pleasant experience with the particular firearm in general, because holy shit, this thing has a bang for your buck. And without a doubt is the pinnacle of an assault rifle in Star Citizen. Though I am curious as to whether or not its title may be taken over when other assault rifles start coming into the fray, because as much as this weapon is good, there are limitations to it. Obviously, if you're not careful with the pulse shot, you can kill yourself, as well as in terms of if you're firing it a bit too close or you get caught out whilst charging. The other factors, of course, is that it is only a 30-round magazine, which, obviously, if you're wanting to try and stay in the fight for longer, could be problematic. But overall, I would say it's alright. Like, I know other weapons kind of have a 30, but if you know, the Gallant is where if you want to have a little bit more of a longevity towards it. So, but apart from that, this is a pretty solid, reliable, and very, very, very popular rifle. Like, I will agree, it's probably the best assault rifle in Star Citizen at this moment. But otherwise, I feel like I'll be hunted down if I say otherwise. Going to the shotguns. Now, I will add a caveat to this and say I'm not much of a shotgun fan, and of the shotguns I've used in Star Citizen, they are the ones I would say I've used the least. So I cannot offer a huge amount of incentive towards shotguns. And to be fair, I don't... it's very situational dependent. If you're in a very close environment and you need an alternative to a surf machine gun, or you need an alternative to a sniper rifle, then I guess they're useful. But if I had a sniper rifle, I would have an SMG. If I had an SMG, I would have an assault rifle or an LMG. I would not use a shotgun in that particular respective. Unless there's a situation in which the game kind of forces me to use a shotgun, I do not willingly go for a shotgun. That being said, let's talk about a few of them. So the first is the Devastator shotgun, a sort of Kana-like replacement, which if you're not careful, you might end up thinking that this is the Kana versus that being the Kana. As if you've heard the word the Kana and you say it's a funky looking rifle, this may confuse you. until you actually get up close to and personal to it. But still, it's... I will say this, I once thought this was the Kana, and that was the other shotgun, but yeah, that was when I was a very new player, and very dumb. So the Devastator shotgun has obviously the ability to fire pretty effective rounds, and its magazine capacity isn't overly bad. It's like, how much is it now? I know it's changed in recent times. 12 rounds, okay. So, of course, you can also charge up. I think this also has the benefit, like the Kana rifle, that it's a plasma shotgun. So it has the ability to charge up an energy beam shot rather than just a normal shot. But it is a pumpy action shotgun, and the pump action shotguns in these games, for some reason, they just take a really long time, with the exception of one. And as I said, this shotgun is it's alright, it does the job, it's okay. This shotgun is the Ravager 12. Now, this one is not full auto, so it's not pump action. It is instead semi-automatic. But the rate of fire is very limited. Yeah, it's very limited. I've often found that when I fire the weapon, I'm like trying to press it. It's like pang, 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 and like that to me is not fast firing. That to me sounds like I'm restricting my firearm firing capacity because some reason I'm slightly shit. The only real benefit when it comes to these particular weapons is that it has the ability, I think this one is the one that has like the tri-barrel onto it or something. Yeah, this one has like multiple barrels. So you can basically twack someone really quickly if you want. So you trade up more ammunition in one shot, but you fire multiple barrels. This is not really something I personally find to be useful in a shotgun because while it's cool, you're pissing your ammo away, not really doing too much. Now the R97 is again another semi-automatic shotgun that does okay, but nothing really impressive. It's another semi-automatic shotgun. Its rate of fire isn't fast enough to really justify it, and while it does have the pellet approach, it doesn't really use anything unique about itself. It's there. In fact, to be fair, I honestly don't think I've used this firearm in over many years, and I've almost forgotten how it works, but what I can remember for sure is that it was not impressive to say the least, and other shotguns are preferable to it, though maybe I should go be fair and at some point hop back to this weapon, so maybe I might do a video in the future talking about different weapons and whether or not they hold up in comparison. But all I will say is that no. At the moment, no. It's not quite that great, but still. And finally, we go to, in my opinion, the best option for in terms of shotguns, which is the B2 shotgun. This thing, the Bearing know how to make a good shotgun, and to be fair, Bearing may know how to make a good weapon as well. This shotgun is the fastest firing, the best magazine capacity, and in terms of like rapid reload as well as whatnot, it's the best all-rounder. It fires quickly, its magazine capacity isn't ridiculously small, and it's fairly modular as well. This is the one that I would say is the best shotgun in my opinion, but obviously that opinion can vary, and I'd say also when it comes to shotguns, I'm not I'm not the kind of person who goes for shotguns. So, but in terms of like what I would say is I like in terms of shotguns, this is definitely it, and would definitely be useful for anyone out there who wants to spam rounds downrange. Now on to the cooler guns. The sniper rifles, one of my favorite types of weapons in most video games. So, if we're gonna, I'm not even gonna begin to beat around the bush. If you're gonna be getting into sniping, then the P6LR is currently what I'd say the meta choice. It's a semi-automatic firearm. It's got 8 rounds, so pretty reasonable magazine capacity. It's got a pretty decent scope, and it has a very heavy punch. It's the Barrett 50 cal of Star Citizen, and I've used this to great effect on both NPCs and players alike. In fact, getting my longest distance kill, which I think was around 500 and something meters, because you can set it, you had it on the scope, and I had it at the highest distance. I think it was around 500 meters or so. That is the largest range I've gotten on this thing. I realize there are probably players out there that can hit like 1 km, no trouble. But for me, that was a pretty big achievement, especially since Star Citizen's desync at times was a bit, so yeah. But in terms of medium to long range engagements, this weapon is fantastic. As with most weapons of a good quality, it can be customized to your heart's content. You could try and make this into a close range engagement thing, but I will not lie, you will be fucked if as a result of that. But you never know. People can give this the best shot or whatnot. But still, this thing is really, really good. And if you're wanting to get into sniping, I can't recommend a better weapon. At least if you're wanting to get into this in an easy sense. The arrowhead is kind of bleh. The arrowhead has the benefit of being an energy weapon, which means that instead of having one shot take a certain amount of ammunition, you can charge up the magazine, similar to the Kana rifle, only less of a boom and more of a thump. And you can basically have a larger, more powerful round impact onto your opponent. However, I will state this: it does not look well. It does not really work as well as you'd think. And also, I'm kind of hard-grained into having a, ballistic mindset when it comes to sniping. So I couldn't hit shit for dick with this thing because, of course, there's no drop-off with a laser beam. So I was forever struggling to hit anything. And that's the truth of it, which was really irritating, because I'm like, I'd like to make this thing work because it looks cool. It's a really cool energy weapon, and the fact that you can fire a pulse out of it, that's even more cool. But no, we can't hit things because my brain is, having played Sniper Elite, fucking Armor 2, Armor 3, every other game has had a sniper rifle with ballistics in it, and I can't use an energy sniper rifle as a result of that, which sucks. But hey-ho. But still, good weapon, though. If you can get it to work for you, oh, you're in the clear for that. Now, the other weapon here is the Scalpel Sniper Rifle. Now, this weapon, I actually didn't know existed for a very, very long time until someone mentioned to me... Actually, no, I think I found it once in a box, and I was like, oh, what's this? I didn't know this existed. And when I took it out, I thought, oh, I'll give it a go. Looks intriguing. It looks like a reasonable sniper rifle. I thought it was just one of those semi-automatic, run-of-the-mill weapons that you just shoot on occasion, and then you reload, and then you pull the bolt back, and it looks pretty cool. Oh no, I was wrong. It's a bolt-action sniper rifle. And the moment I found that out, my jaw dropped, I got a severe erection and was like, I need this in my life. Yeah, I have a bit of a weak spot for bolt-action rifles. They are obsolete, but I love them. And when I saw this guy fire and, pull the bolt back to do it again, I was like, ah! And yeah, therein lies the point in which I fell in love with this weapon. So this is my current favorite weapon as well. And it has a really, really good scope as well, which I love. So multiple reasons as to why I love this weapon. It also looks amazing. It has such a good looking... It looks like a very... The only thing I don't like is the weird little foregrippy thing on the front area. But apart from that, like on the trigger guard area, I don't like that. If you could get rid of... If you could, chip the bit off that sticks out, I would love this rifle even more. But still, damn good fucking rifle, and I will be using it in the future. Then we have my second favorite weapon, the Atscav. Now, the Atscav, similar to the Uberov, is an energy laser rifle. So it uses electricity to zap fuckers into oblivion. Though, intriguingly enough, I thought at first it would be a lightning gun, where, you fire and an arc of lightning comes out and strikes the specific target that you're aiming at, which doesn't actually seem to be the case. What seems to be the case is when you fire the weapon, a pulse energy, pretty much like a pulse rifle pulse, comes out of the weapon, and it has an arc, and it goes into the target, which then proceeds to zap it into oblivion, and if it is nearby someone, it daisy chains them a bit. Now, I've been able to reliably tag multiple players in a row with this thing, and it is very nice. I remember specifically we were doing a training King of the Hill style event, and there was like 3 guys in a row I was able to one-tap because they came out to see what happened to the guy before them. So yeah, no, I'm very confident in this particular weapon. It does the job really well. The only downside is that it's very slow firing, and when you're and especially when you're reloading, oh boy, you cannot use this on the hurry up. If you are caught out with your pants down, you will die very quickly. So if you are taking this weapon, take a secondary for God's sake, or a pistol. You know, remember, switching to your pistol is always faster than reloading. Same applies in Star Citizen. Take a submachine gun or a pistol that you can rely on to save yourself should the shit hit the fan, because you will not be in a position to react fast enough if you're caught with your pants down, unlike if you had the P6LR. So we go over to the big weapons, and I'm gonna pair these in the same time, the same sort of grouping, because these are kind of more the specialty weapons that you don't really see that often unless you're going for a particular build in Star Citizen, and especially if you're going in for these particular weapons. So one thing I will mention again, because it's for some reason absent from here, the FS9 LMG from Bering is for some reason absent. Even though it's probably the best LMG for players in Star Citizen, it's very weirdly not here. I don't know why it's not here, but it's not here. So the FS9 is basically, I'll go into that, it's an LMG similar to the P4 in terms of build. Where is it there? It's similar in terms of the LMG. It's just got a massive drum magazine. It has 120 rounds? 100-ish rounds, or 100 rounds, around 100 rounds for that one. So you will be finding that weapon, and its rate of fire is pretty reasonable. I'd say about 600 to 700 rounds a minute, which means you have a long-term engagement, you have capacity, you have a long-term suppression capacity, long-term ammunition capacity, and you have a very good damage ratio as well. It doesn't take many rounds to kill someone, and you can do quite a fair amount of damage, so big pluses in my opinion. It's also quite modular and customizable, giving you that extra flexibility to really hone in your own personal experiences. One thing I actually forgot to mention as well, we'll get into it when we get to the demo code, but yeah. The other thing, of course, is that it is recoil-wise not bad. It's a very effective LMG, and I would say the best LMG for your choice if you're new to Star Citizen and you don't want to go for something specialized. This is the other LMG. This is the F55, and unfortunately, this weapon would be awesome if it wasn't for the fact that you didn't have a spool-up option. Because basically, somebody thought futuristic LMGs need to be minigun capable, which is cool. I don't blame them for that. But at the same time, it's very limited because you can't spool the minigun up. Like, I really don't understand why they don't have that option in a gun that has multiple barrels. They just add that feature in, and this gun will be immediately preferable. Like, sure, reduce my magazine capacity, because this thing has, like, what, 150 rounds? Sure. Reduce my ammunition capacity to, like, 120 or whatever to justify to justify giving it the ability to spool up when aiming. But, like, this weapon basically suffers from the same problem that any AD-5B7 or the Ares Inferno or any other sort of weapon has, which is when you fire, you have to fire a few rounds before the minigun or the barrels begin spinning at optimal levels, which in my opinion is a bad fucking design, because it means then this weapon for a important few seconds, which normally is what happens when you pull the trigger, your weapon's going to be slow firing. And sure, maybe after a couple of seconds of holding the trigger down, it's certainly going at the rate that you want it to, but you'll probably be dead by then. And that's just something you cannot have in Star Citizen, in a game in which if you go down, you lose quite a lot. So I really don't understand why they don't have a spool-up option in this. And again, I'm more than willing to accept any kind of ammunition nerf to compensate for such things, or to make the damage not as great as it could be. But just don't fuck us over with a slow-firing minigun. I mean, come on. Don't. That's a bad idea, and you know it, CIG. Ugh. But anyway, so therein lies the other option. It's not a great option, and if you find it, you'll only use it as an emergency rather than something you prefer. Going over to the Demeco. Now, I feel like the Demeco is a weapon that I feel like they've boosted its importance only because I feel like otherwise it wouldn't have been used. This is basically a Gallant using the full auto capacity, because this weapon does have the full auto fire rate of the Gallant before they nerfed it. And I feel like the reason why they changed the Gallant's, or why they nerfed the Gallant and changed it so much, is because the Gallant was more or less a Demeco, but far more accessible and far more easy to work with. And I think they were like, ah shit, we need to probably make the Demeco look a bit more appealing to people, so we'll give it the full auto option. Now, one thing I forgot to mention when it comes to the Demeco and the Gallant, which is a bad thing on me, and to be fair, the Lumen as well. The Demeco, Gallant, and Lumen have a problem where their dispersion of rounds tends to be a little bit more open than perhaps other weapons. And to be fair, I think also you could attach that with the Custodian as well. Yeah, no, pretty much all of the energy weapons. So I do apologize for not for forgetting about that until now. But basically, there is an attachment called the EM Stabilizer. Now, depending on the size of the weapon, normally it's either 2 or 1 that you need to work with. But basically, the EM Stabilizer increases the accuracy of your rounds. Rather than having them spread out a bit like a shotgun, instead they focus them in, making them more like the air assault rifle or ballistic counterparts. Which, I mean, the spread isn't that atrocious if you don't use an EM stabilizer, but if you're wanting more accuracy with your shots, it can become an important factor as a result. So there's always going to be one slot on the muzzle that is going to be taken up with the EM stabilizer, unless you decide to go for an alternative option, but that's more personal preference than anything. Apart from that, the Demeco is a pretty solid, reliable firearm. You can put your scopes onto it. It's very long. It's got a 100-round magazine, which is pretty good, and it definitely, it's in terms of combat capability, it's a pretty effective firearm. My only sort of caveat is the rate of fire is a bit slow. It's the Gallant before the Gallant was nerfed. So it's basically, it has a which, it's good, it's reliable, I like it, but for some people out there, they may want a faster firing SMG, which is where the FS9 comes in with its 750, that kind of sort of relevant to it. So yeah, that's that particular firearm sorted for you. Let's get on to the big DACA. So, first of all, I'm going to say this. The GP33 mod, the doom of all bunker mission styles, this is basically the M32, just a little bit more ridiculous. So this is a grenade launcher firing 6 high explosive rounds. It looks cool and is probably banned in every Org v Org event, because this thing has a nasty tendency of, if it doesn't kill you, it knocks you over, and it makes you very vulnerable to anything else like that. So I remember when this thing first came in with Star Citizen, loads of clans basically bought this thing and then were like, hey, wanna do a King of the Hill? And then whenever someone entered into a bunker or any kind of building, they would just have one dude with one of these things and everyone else would die. So yeah, not a fun weapon to fight against. And in terms of in terms of its capabilities, it does the job. You clear the crowds and it fires pretty quickly. Reload's a bit lengthy, but that is, it is a big weapon after all. It does the job for that means. So yeah, not great, but really good. Not bad, but not great either. It does the job. I have no personal love for this thing. I don't want to call it a noob tube because it's not a noob tube, but it is a noob launcher, so you never know. We'll go over to the Animus missile launcher. Now, sadly, the Animus missile launcher, you can tell he's using the fucking railgun option for that. So the Animus missile launcher is a very... I feel sorry for this weapon. It's basically a Halo-style missile launcher which can fire multiple rockets rather than just the 1 or 2. It has 3 shots, and whenever you lock onto a target, it basically, once you've locked onto the target, it fires 3 separate missiles which, supposedly can do some pretty decent damage. The problem is, I've never really had a position, or never been in a position where it's worked enough for us to use it. So in terms of anti-tank or anti-aircraft missiles, it's very limited in what it can do. I hope in the future it can perhaps do more, but unfortunately it's not really that useful as an anti-tank weapon, sadly. I'm hoping that CIG looks into this a bit more into the future when we start seeing NPC missions NPCs coming down with more than just transport vehicles, but actual combat vehicles as well. But until then, I'd say if you're looking for an anti-tank weapon, then the only weapon of choice, in my opinion, has to be the Scourge Railgun. This thing is amazing. It is basically I think the best way to describe it is, do you remember the Spartan laser from Halo 3, more specifically? That's this thing. It basically, you charge it up, once it reaches a certain point, you fire it, and then has the nice benefit that if you don't fire after holding the trigger down, it'll just cool off and reset. So be careful, because obviously you don't want to end up wasting your shot, because it does take a long while to charge up. But once you fire this thing, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, this thing can fucking rip into most ground vehicles. If you shoot an Ursa, it'll immediately douche off the vehicle's vehicle's wheels. If you shoot at a Nova tank, you can fuck its shields over quite quickly and result in killing it fairly fast. And of course, if you're trying to go anti-air, then you will be severely buggering over any vehicle's shields before immediately going through into the armor as well. Now, I realize at the moment that this is all dependent on the armor values rather than the HP damage that it does, but eventually I'm sure these weapons will struggle to be very useful in terms of adaptability when armor becomes a factor. But most vehicles tend to die when you use these things in succession. 2-man, 3-man teams tend to be the best kind of dispersion factor for this, and when we did have a successful aircraft shooting down, it was very satisfying. I won't lie. So, yeah, if you're looking for anti-tank, the Scourge railgun. If you're looking for anti-infantry, it's the GP-33. I'm hoping we get an RPG in the future which bridges the gap between guided and unguided rocket launchers, but I don't think we will be lucky to have that position. And that's it. That's my experiences with each and all of these firearms. Now, I will say, not all, at the time of this recording, these weapons can, of course, change. They are not, stationary in their logics. 1 month they could be one thing, the next patch they could be another. So do get out there and give these weapons a go. And if you have any different opinions on the weapons, or if you find that your experiences are different, let me know. I will be trying to do some more longer range engagement missions. Now that we've finally got missions to work with, I'm hoping to do more of those in the near future, being able to sort of judge whether certain vehicles are better or worse. And I would just want to say thank you all so very much for watching this series, for anyone who's interested in the IAE. This event's been fantastic. I personally loved the journey, and I hope you have enjoyed the journey with me. And we leave this event by saying, well, holy shit, that was an amazing event. And I look forward to seeing you guys when I do Star Citizen streams. Live Citizen. Ah, that might be a name I could use. He says it immediately gets copied by everyone else. And also, can we just say, stop being a litterbug, you pieces of shit? Do you realize how big this area is? The handymen are going to be struggling with this whole zone. Seriously. But yeah, so I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you also very much for watching this series, and I'll see you either on live, or I'll see you at the next event, which will be the Invictus Launch Week 2024, or 2954. Have a good one, guys.